Edmond Tarverdyan, the trainer and coach for Ronda Rousey and also her now spouse, Travis Brown, by the way, who was lost 4 or 5. He looks good. So Tarverdyan was on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Jason, you have the quote, but he provided some really, really interesting comments as it pertains to Ronda Rousey's future and who she could potentially fight.
Correct. Quote number 1 on Monday. How do we pronounce this again?
Edmond Tarverdyan.
Tarverdyan told Ariel Helwani in the 400th episode of the MMA Hour, so I guess congrats to Ariel Helwani. That Cyborg would
awesome.
be the ideal foe for a Rousey comeback effort and a winnable fight for the former UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. Quote, that's the one. I want that fight. When I trained Ronda, I know Ronda could beat Cyborg. I know that. Money line, Cyborg is too slow.
The money line,
What
TML.
Fuck is he
The money
talking
line
about?
from the money team.
Yeah.
What Cyborg does he think he's speaking of?
I have no idea. Maybe he's talking about the Cyborg that well, maybe, or the one that Ronda Rousey, who he trained, thought could have went up against.
Terminator 2 Cyborg.
But I'm thinking it was probably part of the reason when he was coaching Ronda Rousey, and when Ronda Rousey was at the top of her game, there is no one that you would put in front of her that you thought could stand a chance because of how remarkable of a fighter she was, regardless of the fact that Cyborg was always a threatening opponent to her. The whole weight class conversation was one that fell on deaf ears because we've seen the video of Cyborg almost killing herself by trying to cut weight.
Yeah.
It was awful. But the difference is, like, regardless of what you think about Cyborg is too slow. Have you seen Ronda Rousey fight in the last 2 fights? Like, I don't think you're in any position to comment on anyone being too slow or anyone that Ronda Rousey should take. It should be the absolute opposite. You should be looking at someone that you think Ronda Rousey could at least try to start her career back up. When I did the clip,
She can't beat anybody right
that's
now
what I'm saying.
in the UFC.
The way when I spoken about Ronda Rousey in the past, when I talked about how she came back in and she got immediately that title fight against Nunes, we talked about it several times. Nunes was petrifying. She was the worst opponent.
Nunes was petrified?
Yeah.
Was petrifying to Ronda Rousey.
Petrifying.
She went right at her.
She would have been the worst opponent that Ronda Rousey could have came back to face after the Holly Holm fiasco. And she went straight back into the lion's den and got chewed up and spat out. So even contemplating the idea of her fighting against Cyborg, you're just setting yourself up for, a good money fight, but she would just fall flat in the face again.
There's a few layers to this. Firstly, Tarverdyan, as I mentioned jokingly, but it's factual, Travis Brown has lost 4 or 5.
Yeah.
That's another fighter that he took under his wing, not winning. Ronda Rousey, his golden child of a product that came through his system and has been training with him for a very long time. Again, the money isn't coming in. He filed for bankruptcy previously. He settled the case, I think it was about $18,000, something like that, maybe give or take a little more or less. So this could be a money grab to not only get himself back in the headlines, to other fighters that are like, other up and coming young fighters to be like, wait a minute, that was Ronda Rousey's trainer? So then maybe they give him a call. So it could be a play and a strategical play for him, and it could also be because he just doesn't have the money right now, my opinion. But for Ronda Rousey, let's just say this hypothetically happens, she will get destroyed. It would be like if Canelo Alvarez took on Conor McGregor, but Conor McGregor was just a little more aged and a little more slow. It wouldn't even go a full round. That's how bad it would be. Ronda Rousey should, if she wants to come back, go and fight like the 10th best fighter in the division, if there's even that. The 8th best fighter, the 7th best fighter. She cannot beat Valentina the Bullet Shevchenko. Nope. I don't think she could beat Holly Holm. I don't think, no way in hell, she could beat Cris Cyborg. She cannot beat Amanda Nunes. She's a broken fighter right now who has given us so much. She literally created a division in the UFC that did not exist. Agreed. Like Tiger Woods with golf is the similarity that I make. Before Nike, before Nike had Tiger, there was no golf division at all. So the impact that she's had is insurmountable. What we don't want to see is a Muhammad Ali-like comeback where he's way past his prime. It's the last fight of his career, and he gets his shit kicked in because we don't want to see our champions.
We've already seen that happen.
I agree. I don't need to see it a third time.
Yeah. Dana White doesn't care about what you want to see. Dana White cares that Ronda Rousey.
This isn't up to Dana White though. It's up to Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, money talks. Everyone has their price.
I agree with you. Money. WWE. She could easily go. Yeah, she might suffer an injury or two because it's a contact sport.
Yeah, of course. The WWE makes a ton of sense. There's also a lot of crossover between WWE and UFC. I don't think Ronda Rousey should take this fight. I think Dana White needs this to happen. And I think that there's going to be oh yeah, he does. Because without Conor, without Diaz fighting, without John Jones, without any of these guys, if you think Daniel Cormier versus...
right, the next best is Stipe. We could all agree on that, right?
And I think Stipe Miocic he carries a lot of, what's the word for this one? He carries a lot of,
I don't know. He carries Cleveland, but yeah, I was going to say he carries the land with him.
He's got a good feel for how to sell for some reason.
So you're saying Dana needs this from a financial perspective because they're hurting?
Not just as much financial. I wouldn't say if they were hurting, but as I mentioned before in the past clip, the expectations that have now been set towards the UFC is going to make him go insane if he can't seem to be selling those pay-per-views, if he can't be filling those seats. No one does it aside from the top 3.
Exactly.
No one does it.
Ronda Rousey against Amanda Nunes on December 30th last year was the New Year's Eve. There's always a New Year's Eve fight or the day before New Year's Eve fight in the UFC. That audience, one, booed Amanda Nunes when she came out the champion. And when I tell you, it's the only time I've ever heard somebody shout the name alongside Bruce Buffer. I think it's Bruce Buffer who does it, or is that the boxing one?
Michael Buffer's boxing, Bruce Buffer is
UFC. They all scream Rowdy Ronda Rousey. They are still and always will be obsessed with her. And Dana White knows that, and WME knows that, and IMG knows that. Now, this will look bad for Ronda Rousey, because if she gets embarrassed again, what are we going to talk about? Was that the last fight of Ronda Rousey? Is she going to come out of retirement again? That would be insane. Amanda Nunes, you said it wouldn't last around. Amanda Nunes beat her in what, 1 minute and 8 seconds?
Yeah,
something like that. She bulldozed her.
I'm looking at, real quick, I'm looking at the schedule
Holly
here.
Holm is the fight that she should take. Because if you want to talk about someone who's slower,
well, it's guaranteed to go past a round.
It's safer than Cyborg.
Yeah,
it's safer than Nunes. It's safer than Shevchenko. It's safer than pretty much anybody else that's in the top 3, top 4. And there's, of course, the storyline of her losing to Holly Holm. There's obviously something there that's worth watching. It's the somewhat best of both worlds of, okay, she won't die in the octagon. Because don't forget, Ronda Rousey's words towards Cyborg is she's juiced up to her fucking neck or something like that. About her using steroids.
Right. I'm just looking at some of the cards. The only million pay-per-view buy that I see is Bisping GSP. If you want to see a good card, Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee is going to be an awesome.
Tony Ferguson's a really entertaining fighter. He's a really
but it's not going to get a million pay-per-view buys. So the only one that they have right now in the docket is Bisping GSP, and then outside of that.
And what's the best fight on Bisping GSP's card?
Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw.
Correct.